backstory to life with Ancestry.
Now, Paul Clark presents coverage of the results of the Northern Ireland Assembly election.
Good afternoon and welcome to Vote 22, UTV's coverage of this hugely important Assembly election. The people have spoken, and over the next 4 hours we'll be trying to work out exactly what it is they have said. Our counting has been underway since 9 o'clock, and we are live with you throughout the afternoon as the results come in. The votes for the 18 constituencies are being counted at 3 centres across Northern Ireland. That's at the Meadowbank Sports Centre in Magherafelt, Ulster University at Jordanstown, and here in Belfast at the Titanic Exhibition Centre. Our team of correspondents and reporters is at those centres and will bring us all of the results as they happen throughout the day, along with any unforeseen twists and turns. Here in the studio, my guests will be analysing what it all means, and they include our political editor, Tracy McGee. We're joined by Professors Deirdre Heenan from Ulster University and Peter Sherlow from the University of Liverpool. And we'll be hearing from them shortly. First, here's Mark Mallet.
Yes, Paul, thank you. Throughout the afternoon, I'll be chatting to the political commentator, Alan Mabon, who is here with me in the studio. We'll be looking at all the goings-on online to see what we can make of the results as they're coming in. And you can stay up to date with what's happening on our website. Just search for UTV News. We're also on Twitter too, the hashtag UTV Vote 22.
Now, the big question, who will come back as leader of the biggest party and take the position of First Minister? Well, turnout this time, and this isn't an official figure at this stage, but what we're looking at is 63.52%, and that's down slightly from 2017, which was at 64.78%. And remember, the total electorate this time was bigger. Now, there are 90 Assembly seats, 5 for each of the 18 constituencies across Northern Ireland. And let's take a look at the number of seats won by each party at the last Assembly election in 2017. So the DUP had 28, the Sinn Féin 27, Ulster Unionists 12, SDLP 11, Alliance on 8, and others that included the Independent Unionists, People Before Profit and the Greens on 5, and the TUV as well. So, Tracy McGee, early stages, but how's it looking for you so far?
Well, at the moment it looks as if Sinn Féin are going to take the top job. They say their vote has held up. They think that they will be able to maintain their seat tally or close to it. DUP, we're looking at losses of somewhere between 3, maybe 5 seats. Good day in the office for the Alliance Party. If it all goes well for them, they could potentially double their seat numbers. Not a good day for the Green Party. They are wiped out, it looks like. TUV have also increased their vote. What that will mean in terms of seats, we don't know. But also then the Ulster Unionist Party and the SDLP in fights, and some of their big hitters, including Minister Nicola Mallon, are in for a fight.
But at this stage, there are no declarations.
No, we only have turnout confirmed. We have no declarations so far. And don't forget, even at that, we are getting first preference votes. This election will turn on transfers.
And transfers, of course, we will not get a clearer picture on those transfers until further down the line.
It could be quite late this evening, maybe the early hours of tomorrow morning before we see that. In so many constituencies, the outcome of this election will be decided in the 5th seat.
And the 5th seat, Deirdre Heenan, that's the one that people will be looking for in each of the 18 constituencies, surely?
Well, as Tracy said, the whole point, what we're looking at here is the transfers. So we can see so far first preference votes, but really what we're interested in is how do people do in terms of transfers. And we are looking at 5th seats, we're looking at Foyle, we're looking at South Down, we're looking at Upper Bann. There will be some very interesting fights for those final seats, and they will then decide what the final picture really looks like. As Tracy had said, the story seems to be that Sinn Féin are on course to take the First Minister's role.
And topping the poll isn't what it's all about here, Peter Sherlow.
There's 2 stories here that will potentially emerge. There's the below, above the surface, the DUP Sinn Féin battle, which I think Sinn Féin are going to win in that case. And then there's the other thing is, why has the Alliance had this surge? And that surge has to mean they've started to get votes from nationalism. And that tells us something about big structural changes that are taking place in our society.
Well, the party leaders have it all to do today and indeed in the future. So we can take a look at some of the images now of the party leaders as they have arrived. I'm just wondering what sort of a day Jeffrey Donaldson is going to have. He's at one of the Count centres there.
Jeffrey Donaldson, we believe, will top the poll. I think in that regard, on a personal level, he is probably going to do okay. As the leader of a party that is probably going to lose the ascendancy in Stormont, that is not a good picture for him, and he has big questions.
But I also wonder, will he think that his strategy of saying that he wouldn't confirm whether he would serve alongside a Sinn Féin First Minister actually galvanised the nationalist vote?
Well, that's something that we will come to. And talking of the nationalist vote, we can take a look at the images we have of Michelle O'Neill, who has arrived at the Count Centre there in Magherafelt. The indications are that it will be a good day for Sinn Féin.
Yes, looks very much like it. They will be pleased. They've had a softly approach to this election. Don't scare the horses, and it seems to have worked for them. They will be pleased.
I'm told that Michelle O'Neill will top the poll, and potentially her running mate Linda Dillon as well will get over in first preference vote. So the words that were used to me is that she's going to storm it.
And we'll come to you now, Peter Sherlow. Let's just have a look at the images we have of Colm Eastwood, the MP for Foyle and leader of the SDLP, arriving. There are images. Do you think he's going to have a good day?
He's already said that what he reckons has happened is that desire within nationalism to have Michelle O'Neill as First Minister has meant that SDLP voters have lent their first preferences to Sinn Féin, so he's not going to have a good day. And it is a pity. They've got really good candidates. Nicola Mallon was a very good minister, but it's this alliance surge which is squeezing that middle ground very tightly, and I think that's why he's not going to particularly have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Foyle is going to be the only constituency that will return 2 SDLP seats on first preference votes anyway.
So Doug Beattie is having his first outing as leader of the Ulster Unionist Party. We've got images of him just arriving at his Count Centre there. Purposely striding to the Count is the best way of describing that, Tracy.
I think he's going to have a difficult day, because not only is he looking at potentially losing very well-known faces like Roy Beggs in East Antrim, Mike Nesbitt in Strangford, he's also going to have to explain his strategy, because it looks as if the TUV have increased their vote. His vote has fallen. There are big questions for his strategy in this election.
And there is an important point here about how Sinn Féin can manage their vote. Sinn Féin aren't going anywhere here. They might have a few percentage more. Like in Strangford and East Belfast putting up 2 candidates when there weren't 2 quotas.
We've got images here of Mike Nesbitt. Now, he was the leader of the Ulster Unionist Party at the last Assembly election, isn't that right, Tracy? 2017. He's not looking very happy there.
Assembly election seems to be a bit of a jinx for Ulster Unionist leaders, because, of course, Mike Nesbitt resigned after what happened in...
Live on UTV?
He did, indeed. So it is not always a good outcome for Ulster Unionist leaders' Assembly elections. I'm hearing that he is very downbeat about his potential. And just as Peter is saying, questions about the decision to run 2 candidates where it looks like there's only been 1 quota.
Why would they have done that?
Hope springs eternal. I just don't know why you would have done that, and it's, you know, like we know the DUP will do better than the result today in terms of seats, because they only put up 28 candidates. Is that right? You know, they didn't risk anything, and they knew in some areas where they put up 3 previously, they had 2.5 quotas. So it's a mistake. It's just a mistake. I think it's just hope.
There's much talk in this election about how Alliance will do. We've got images of Stephen Farry now arriving at the Count Centre. He's not standing, of course, as an MLA. He is the MP for North Down. But there you have it. A smiling, rather buoyant, you would have thought, Stephen Farry.
You don't need to
wouldn't be like him, would it?
Just look at the facial expressions.
Exactly.
I think that speaks volumes.
Well, you know, they're optimistic. They are not definitely saying that they are going to completely storm this election, but they believe that they are in fights. They're definitely in contention. Very optimistic about taking the 2nd seat in North Down, also making gains in Upper Bann, South Down, North Belfast. The point is they're doing well everywhere.
Right, OK. Well, that's an analysis of where we stand in this early part of the afternoon from Peter, from Deirdre and from Tracy. We still have no seats declared at this particular point. Now, the big questions are who will come back as the biggest party and who might take the position of First Minister. Well, we're going to South Belfast now, where we can join our reporter Judith Hill, and she's been looking at two constituencies there. But we'll start with South Belfast, which is a very diverse constituency, Judith, so tell us please what's happening there.
Well, Paul, it's shaping up to be another very tense and tight battle here in South Belfast. Of course, this was the nail-biting 3 a.m. finish in 2017. Now, the status quo here is 5 different MLAs from 5 different parties, and the question this time is who will miss out. Now, all eyes were on Edwin Poots when he announced he was being parachuted into this constituency. Eyebrows were raised. But the DUP are running him as a solo candidate this time, and I spoke to him a short time ago. He's relaxed, he says he's faring well, and he says he can drink lattes with the best of them in South Belfast. Now, of course, he's hoping to retain the seat of his friend Christopher Stolford, who tragically lost his life earlier this year, so that's an emotional backdrop to the DUP campaign in this. Now, Alliance are really interesting here. They stood 2 candidates. There was some edginess within the party about this, but insiders are saying that Paula Bradshaw is polling well so far, and that Kate Nicholl, the Belfast mayor, will be competing, they say, for that final seat. Now, of course, she's run a very popular campaign as mayor, and they say this makes her very transfer friendly. As I mentioned, this was a nail biter the last time I spoke to the Green Party's Claire Bailey. She was last across the line last time, and she says she expects to be sweating it out again this time. Sinn Féin say they're polling well. Their big hitter is Deirdre Hargey. This is her first time to be tested electorally. She was co-opted in the last time, and the SDLP, I should say, are running 2 candidates. So it's a really packed field and a really tight fight to come here.
Now, Judith, East Belfast, let's take a look at that one, because is it possible Alliance might overtake the DUP as the biggest party in the East?
Well, that is the big question here. East is no stranger to those dramatic election showdowns. But I don't want to talk this constituency down, but party insiders are saying at this stage it could be heading towards status quo. DUP running 2, Alliance running 2, and they both hold 2 seats at the moment. And party insiders are saying they could be on course both to retain those seats. The question is, yes, those first preference votes. Naomi topped the poll. Naomi Long, Alliance party leader, this is her home turf. She topped the poll here the last time, and her party is saying she is on course to get in at the first stage. So all eyes will be on those tallies, because really the dual identity of East really is on show here so far, between the DUP and Alliance, fairly neck and neck. I should say as well, the Ulster Unionists have been bold in running 2 candidates here this time, the incumbent Andy Allen and newcomer Lauren Kerr, but the indications are that that is unlikely to pay off for them. So the battle here really is that tussle, that duel between the Alliance Party and DUP to see who comes out on top here.
Thank you very much indeed for that, looking at South and East Belfast there. Tracy McGee, what do you make of what you've just heard there?
Well, you know, I laughed at Judith saying that Edwin Poots is relaxed. Edwin Poots is always relaxed. Even at the worst, Edwin Poots is always relaxed. But I am told that he's quite confident that he's going to get in over the line. What's interesting here is that the Alliance strategy of running 2 candidates does appear to be paying off. It's not a given when you're in a 5-seat constituency, but I think they are quite hopeful. But that's very bad news for the Green Party, because it will be at their expense. And Sinn Féin, well, Deirdre Hargey, you know, she's not as popular as Martin O'Mullward. She doesn't have his profile, but I think she's safe enough. SDLP decided to run 2. Not sure how good a strategy that would be. I would think that Matthew O'Toole will do all right, but they're obviously trying to build their vote. And East Belfast, as I understand it, it's a hold. It's going to stay as it was.
Well, Deirdre Heenan, the Alliance Party is in the ascendant there big time.
Absolutely, and not surprisingly, I think they have managed their campaign very well. They have decided where they think there is possibility for growth. I mean, I agree with Tracy. I smiled when I heard Edwin Poots talking about a latte drinking with the best of them, but I think if he was asked, would he prefer to be in South Belfast, where there clearly is a quota for him, or sweating it out in Lagan Valley over the 3rd seat, I would say he's a very happy man, particularly relaxed, because he is fairly safe and will be over the line, I would imagine.
One of the DP sources was telling me that he wouldn't have got a seat in Lagan Valley, so actually the strategy has paid off.
So anyway, a quick answer from you, Peter Sherrill. So in East Belfast, it looks like it is as it was, 2 Alliance, 2 DUP and 1 Ulster Union.
Which is the thing we need to be careful here, because although the DUP vote is going to be down, this vote management where they had 3 before in many different constituencies where there are 2.5 quotas. There's, even if your vote goes down by a third, you still have 2 quotas. And we just have to be careful here. This will be a reduced DUP vote, but there'll still be places where they are guaranteed to get in. The other thing is here, we've looked at 2 constituencies that are the 2 most affluent wards in Belfast. I think we'll see a slightly different picture when we go out to the rural constituencies, especially regarding the TUV. I think in North Antrim and other places we will see a solid rural TUV vote.
It is still early in the afternoon and there are many hours to fill, and there'll be lots of opportunity to speak and to see the pictures that are coming from the various count centres. Now, the other Belfast constituencies being counted at Titanic are West and North. Our political correspondent Vicky Hawthorne is there. Now, Vicky, there's been talk about the battle for the 5th seat between Sinn Féin and Alliance. Is that still the case?
That's in the North Belfast constituency, Paul. I think you're talking about, if people would remember, in 2017, last time round, Alliance gave Sinn Féin a real run for their money in North Belfast. Nuala McAllister then, she came just 550 odd votes behind Sinn Féin's Carol Naculin. So it is understood that there is pressure again from Alliance on that 2nd seat for Sinn Féin in the North Belfast constituency. Nuala McAllister standing again, a former Lord Mayor of Belfast, a recognisable face. Other candidates from Alliance saying to me they're not ready to use the S word just yet, i.e. a surge for Alliance, but they're certainly feeling very happy and confident about how things seem to be panning out in these constituencies. As I say, Sinn Féin hoping to hold on to 2 seats in North Belfast, but it is going to be a tussle for that seat. Nicola Mallon also trying to hold her seat there as the deputy leader of the SDLP, and of course a former minister at Stormont. The DUP in North Belfast, they're running 2 relatively new faces for the Assembly, 2 councillors, Philip Brett and Brian Kingston, and the party is saying quietly they believe they've done what they need to do in North Belfast for those seats.
Let's look at West Belfast. What chance of Sinn Féin retaining all 4 seats there?
Well, Paul, 4 seats in any constituency, it's an unusual situation. Sinn Féin themselves would even acknowledge that 4 seats is quite a remarkable feat. So again, quietly they're acknowledging that they're going to maybe struggle to keep that 4th seat. There might be a tussle between Sinn Féin, People Before Profit, Jerry Carroll, of course, there, who is trying to return to Stormont, as well as the SDLP. The SDLP's Paul Docherty, again a well-known councillor on the ground in West Belfast. And I guess eyes will also be looking towards People Before Profit's vote there. Back in 2016, Jerry Carroll, he topped the poll in the Assembly elections that year. It hasn't been doing, his party hasn't been doing just as well in recent years, but eyes will be looking to see whether the People Before Profit party can maintain its vote in that constituency.
Hawthorne, thank you very much indeed for that analysis on North and West Belfast. As you can see on your screen now, our correspondent Mark McFadden is at the Count Centre at Meadowbank in Magherafelt, where the Foyle and the East London Dairy counts are underway. Now, Mark, Foyle is very interesting. Can the SDLP take 3? And how vulnerable is that unionist seat held by Gary Middleton?
Well, Paul, if I wear the air of a rather bemused old man, that's because I've been running through the various permutations in my head over the last couple of hours. Foyle is one of those constituencies that seems on the face of it fairly straightforward. It's got a very large inbuilt nationalist majority. Last time out it returned 2 SDLP, 2 Sinn Féin and 1 DUP. Now the SDLP have eyes on a possible 3rd seat, but I think it may be a bit of a stretch. That 5th seat, which the DUP took last time, that's where a lot of the real interest is going to lie. The DUP are fielding Gary Middleton. He's been in the seat for quite a few years, but he's taking a lot of heat from the Ulster Unionist Party. They put up a very interesting candidate in Ryan McCready, a military man, a decorated soldier, a hero of the Afghan conflict, and he's done very well on the doorsteps with Unionist voters in the run-up to the poll. And we're wondering if he can take enough of a bite out of the DUP vote. Could it mean the DUP could lose that seat? Now, I've been speaking to a few DUP insiders. They're still remaining bullish. They're still fighting a tough game when it comes to the spin room. And they're saying they think they will hold it, but that 5th seat is going to be very interesting, because if Ryan McCready does take a big chunk out of the DUP vote and the DUP loses a seat, It would mean that the city of Derry, the Foyle constituency, it's the place with the city walls, the home of the Seeds, the city that gave us the cry no surrender, could end up with no unionist representation in Stormont. And that would be quite a surprise, to put it mildly. It would be a bit of a political and a political earthquake really in the city, I would say, if there was no unionist representative there for Stormont.
No such surprise.
The DUP, I have to stress, Paul, are remaining bullish.
No such surprise for unionism in East London, Derry, but there's a very crowded field there.
It is one of those huge fields, 16 candidates, like Fermanagh South Tyrone. It's a kind of a candidate list that looks more like it should be printed on a scroll rather than just a ballot paper. But East London Derry has been very strong DUP territory for some time, and the party, they're confident after the ballot boxes were open today that they would hold their 2 seats, even though there was a lot of interest in the TUV and Alliance and the Ulster Unionists thinking they could nick one of those seats. The DUP, again, are remaining confident they will emerge with 2 seats from that seat, or from that constituency. Now, the remaining 3 seats, we assume that one of them will almost certainly go to Sinn Féin's Kiva Archibald, one of the outgoing MLAs. That leaves Cara Hunter, that leaves Claire Sugden, the independent. Cara Hunter from the SDLP, of course. Claire Sugden, the independent. Looking as possibles for the final 2 seats, but with a lot of competition from the Alliance Party. They're all fishing for the same kind of votes, really. They're fishing in each other's waters to an extent. 2 seats, 3 potential candidates. Again, it's going to come down to that nail-biting transfers, vote management. Who can manage their vote the best? And an interesting side to that is that Claire Sugden, she has no big party machine. She's an independent, and she's hoping to make electoral history, because if she does take that seat, hold her seat, she will be the first independent to win 3 consecutive Assembly elections.
Mark McFadden, thank you very much indeed. That would be quite some feat, wouldn't it, Deirdre Heenan?
Extraordinary, and as Mark has said, without a party machine, and she was, Doug Beattie had said that he wanted her at a very early stage when he took on the leadership of the Ulster Unionist Party, and I'm sure it was a difficult decision for her, because being on your own is not easy, but she decided to stay on her own, and it looks like it's going to pay off for her.
You've some understanding of what it's like in Foyle.
Oh, Foyle is going to be fascinating. I think we'll all be glued to the 5th seat in Foyle. Will it be that for the first time there will be no unionist representation? The 5th seat's where it's all going to happen. I think it was a stretch for the SLP to think they would get 3 candidates, but even within that, they're not quite sure yet who the second candidate might be. Brian Tierney's very popular locally. Sinead McLaughlin has a profile as an MLA, but it's not clear who the second seat will go to yet, so we will be watching that. And then
will Sinn Féin hold their 2 seats in Foyle?
Of course, yes. Of course, Derry's been difficult. We know about Martine Anderson and the fallouts and the suspensions, and people have been removed from being MLAs, etc. And there were a lot of rumours about this, but yet again it goes back to, that's why I keep saying this, in some constituencies there just is a big core vote, and it doesn't matter if you take a hit, it will always be there. So in Derry, Foyle, they will maintain their 2 seats. Going back to Claire Sugden, I think it's really important. Claire Sugden was a brilliant minister, and it proves a point that if we want to move this place forward, it doesn't always have to be the big parties who offer the best ministers. Claire Sugden, as a Justice Minister, had progressive ideas about the protection of women, especially regarding domestic violence, and also about the reform of our prisons, and had a very competent SPAD who came from a poor corporate background. And I think if we're going to move this Assembly forward, it's expertise and knowledge like that, which will, and maybe if the Alliance Party have done really well here, it's moving into a different non-constitutional space where we start to really hone in. How do we govern this place, and how do we deliver the things that are really important in this election? Cost of fuel, health service, security, the past, but more importantly, I think a lot of people today are voting for a future.
But the big parties will still be the ones to watch.
Well, I think what's interesting about Foyle is, given the fact that we're talking about perhaps this fight between Sinn Féin and the DUP for the top job, if the DUP lose out on Foyle and Sinn Féin manage to maintain their 2 seats, well, there you are, there's a loss for them. And I think also what's interesting for Sinn Féin, yes, there was a lot of poor publicity about Foyle, but I was told by more than one source that the electorate in Foyle were saying, well, we're glad that you took action. You were seen to do something about it, and that has actually potentially played well for them. Certainly, they don't seem to be concerned about Foyle at this point.
OK, panel, thank you very much indeed. Now we're going to rejoin Mark and Alan at the other side of the studio. Mark.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Paul. Well, Alan, it has been something of a dull election campaign, all in all. That's been much of the talk over the last number of weeks. It seems a lot of the excitement may have been held back for a results day, do you think?
I think it's anything but dull today. Over in Titanic Exhibition Centre earlier on today, there were candidates who looked kind of surprised and very happy, and there were those who looked very sad unexpectedly. So I think this is definitely, in terms of, we've been looking at the polls, and now we're starting to believe which bits of the polls were actually telling us what's going to happen today. The fact that Alliance are doing much better.
What about, yeah, we have pictures of Naomi Long just arriving at the Count Centre in Belfast. Obviously, she'll be hoping that her candidates do well right across Northern Ireland. Indeed, a reporter, Sarah O'Kane, has been tweeting also about Stephen Donnelly, the Alliance candidate standing in West Tyrone. If he picks up there, that is proof that the Alliance is spreading its wings slightly, moving more sort of towards the west of the ban.
Yes, they've always been an east of the ban party in a sense. This is a case at the last Assembly election, the Alliance took 0.2 of a quota, a fifth of a quota. So, I mean, they got eliminated quite kind of quickly. They outpulled the UUP at the general election in 2019 and looked like they could well get a candidate in over the head of somebody like Ian Marshall, who's a well-known, was an Irish senator, a very competent kind of modern Ulster Unionist. So actually, this is Alliance's, it's winning in places that they would never have been expected to win until this year.
A lot of that's down to strategy as well, isn't it? And how they organise, what candidates they're going to put where. I mean, some parties have been cutting the number of candidates, not planning necessarily for growth. Others are maybe running too many candidates.
Well, in my own constituency, Lagan Valley, we saw that kind of the DUP realised there's about 2 quotas, so only run 2 candidates, don't try and get the third one in. The UUP seem to kind of be going for the BD bounce. They seem to be kind of feeling that at the time of the party conference in October, things were very good, people liked the message, and so they ran many more candidates. They ran enough that they could say, if we won all the things, we could be the largest unionist party. That seems to be a dreadful mistake, and it looks like there are going to be some very big scalps, the well-known people, who will probably lose their jobs, yes, not get re-elected.
The BD bounce may not have worked at all.
The balloon has burst.
Who do you think will be in the firing line particularly?
Well, Mike Nesbitt looks very, very vulnerable in Strangford, and he looks relatively unhappy if you talk to him and you see him on the TV pictures from the Count Centre. I think running 2 candidates was really far too much, and there's an inefficiency to that, and it means that possibly neither of them get in. But at this stage of the day, we don't have first preferences. Transfers can change a lot, and there could be some kind of personal vote that does get him through, but it's not looking very hopeful.
It could be a similar story for Colin Eastwood of the SDLP in terms of losing some of his big hitters also.
I mean, Nicola Mallon, you'd say, she should get some kind of a bounce as being a minister. People kind of know who she is, and yet in a very tight constituency. And North Belfast is always hard to call over the years, but actually Sinn Féin have really consolidated their vote, if we believe the tallies and what we see, and that's at the expense of other parties in the nationalist grouping, which is the SDLP. Yeah.
Just on a very final note, because of course we're only at the very start of the proceedings, and that we've a lot of counting to go. There's only 3 count centres this time round. Is that likely to make the process a bit quicker, do you think?
I think so. I think Virginia McVeigh, who's the Chief Electoral Officer, has kind of organised it as it's a kind of relatively COVID-safe environment because they're much larger. It means that if certain counts will go faster, I mean, not everybody's ballot was huge. That means that those ones can be, when those people are freed up, they can go and move into the other ones. So I think the intention is to try and get it done, though it could be the wee small hours.
Well, we will wait and see. We'll be here throughout. Paul, back to you.
Thanks very much, Dean Mark. Now, we're going to have the very latest results after this short break, and do stay with us because we'll also be speaking to the leader of the SDLP, Colin Eastwood.